Go ahead. Here's the recording of I recorded it. It's live. Hey everybody, this is gonna be that fun. This is that fun banter where it sounds like you caught us mid conversation. Everybody, see like the little pre-roll thing right before the actual episode goes off. Because yes, welcome to another episode of OverBOTCH. We are here talking about on a big week. The launch of Overwatch 2. Oh my goodness gracious, as well as some other announcements. And it is Wednesday after launch day, so we'll talk a little about the chaos of launch day. But of course, we're here with the great Root Bear Richard, as well as Plexomatic from across the pond. Gents, how we doing?
Good. I'm doing great. I actually got into the servers. It took me a
I
while.
did yesterday. I did yesterday. Yeah, I managed to go a couple hours without any major issue, and then booted to never return.
My ping, unless they've changed it, my ping on my weird LTE connection in Overwatch 2 is now better than it was on the old servers. I
Really?
can actually play more consistently. But fun fact, the rubber banding now when you get ping like packet losses is really bad. They're I don't know what happened on the engine design, but now if I get into traffic mode, it becomes unplayable. Whereas I could actually do okay.
Just
in
so
the
I
old system.
understand, when you say rubber banding, is that when all of a sudden you launch yourself forward without realizing?
Well, you're walking, but then the latency kicks up, so then everyone's place. So Overwatch 1 would stutter. Like people would just show up in different areas, but now you get you see people they look like they're doing Doomfist ults laterally. So it becomes unplayable. So baseline is better. Turbulent times are unplayable now.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean that's kind of the big news. We are recording this on Wednesday, October 5th. It came out yesterday, October 4th, the big launch day. To millions of people logging in and everything for the first time, free to play, all that goodness. And actually the servers actually went online. I was originally going to jump on like 1:30, start streaming, and just kind of chat about it until 2 o'clock when the servers go online in my time zone, 2 p.m., 3 p.m. Eastern. And then all of a sudden, I don't know if I saw somebody else or I just hit hey, let's just see what happened at an hour early, and I got in. And I was like, oh, okay, somebody put something up. So I jumped on, and that's when I was able to stay in for a few hours. But I was unable to complete a ranked game because people kept getting disconnected. So it literally, wouldn't let you when enough people leave, it was gone, to the point where we were playing 4-on-1, and then it just auto completed, and never got an actual completion of a ranked game.
Yeah, the ranked launch was, look, it's no fault of their own getting DDoSed on launch day.
Yes, we should say that they've gone on twice from what I understand. A second one occurred in the middle of the night.
Mean, some people just don't want us to have nice things, and it sucks. I felt really bad for the devs having to go through that. It's awful, But all things considered, I've seen. It's nice to see everyone there. Once you got in, it's a lot of old names you haven't seen in a long time. It's good, right? You want to kind of bring that back. I think that's really good. The gameplay, everything's a little bit smoother now. Now the frames are, compared to the beta, it is locked in. The menus are gorgeous. Yep. It took a little while to find some of the settings because, it has moved around a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. I found that little things that we used to be. Most of my settings transferred though, which I appreciate. Just my sensitivity and keybinds for certain heroes and everything stayed, which small thing, but I appreciated that. But yeah, little things changed about where certain settings were and everything like that. But that all comes with time.
Yeah, exactly. But overall, I think it was a great launch. There's a lot of people trying to use Kiriko, and it's hard to use, very difficult to use. Her ult is really weird because it's everyone goes super fast. It's everyone gets everyone gets a Lucio speed boost and Orisa supercharger at the same time.
Yeah, it's but the speed boost isn't just to your movement; it's to your every single thing you're doing. So all of a sudden, to Kiriko herself is literally just going.
No, but but there's the best thing is when you get that and you're Zenyatta and you have super fast super boop kicks, you can just kick everyone off the edge of the map. You're just poof. It's so I forgot about the Zen kick. Oh.
Yeah.
So honestly, it's looking good. You know, game feels good. Everyone, like I said, they love to get traffic off of Doomsaying, but honestly, it's exactly what I think we expected it to be, and meeting expectations is huge for a game that's always poked at, you know. So I thought it's great to see, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The once you got in, I think the game it played well. Like again, all the changes they made, I think, are generally moving in the right direction. Positive changes. It was just the server attacks and the infrastructure issues that with on the underlying with the server stuff and the connection. That's the big. I was saying a little bit before offline. I'm like, unfortunately, in our ecosystem, in our society, especially with gaming, I feel like the window to correct these things is so tiny now before people go like, oh, wash, oh, crap, everything. I don't think there's gonna be any major like but you need those first few days to be successul, and I hope they can in the next 24 or 48 hours they can really get a nice lock on it.
It's just this. I mean, like, the good news is it's just the servers, you know.
Right.
It's not a fundamental break in the game,
right?
The bad news is that it's the servers, so it means fewer people can get in. But it's the good news is people are waiting in queue. So hey, it's okay. If this goes on for a week, then that's actually telling us there's a bigger problem that they've got.
Right.
But it's the second day. It's like the same reason I don't get upset that if I make a custom match in Gundam Evolution, you can't end the match. You can't go back to lobby. You can't reset. It's really dumb. You have to play through the whole game. So how am I supposed to run a tournament if I can't cancel a match?
Yeah.
Like but it's like the second week. They haven't even gotten there yet. What it actually is right now is this is the beta. Do you know what I mean? Like, because they only did network stability tests before. We're basically playing a beta.
Well, I mean, and so the one thing everyone like, and I get it, it basically is like a launch, but when they first announced the October 4th date and the big thing this summer, like, all right, we've set a date, we're doing this. It was still advertised as early access to Overwatch 2 begins on October 4th. This is still technically the main Overwatch 2 as a property. I still think is launching with the PvE next year. That's kind of their big coming out party.
That's exactly what it is. This is the early access for multiplayer. The game and the actual story of Overwatch. They're saying, you know, it's all about hope and heroes and all this stuff.
The big selling point. Yep.
That is going to be for PvE, and I very much expect a completely, like, a very, very deep campaign for that. We're going to see another cinematic launched around that time. We're going to have more heroes around that time because we need to know the setting of this world, which we saw a little bit of in the 0 hour animation. But that story of where we are today in the game's universe has yet to be told.
Yes.
Yeah. So
which is why
how they do it as well, because if you think about it, let's say you start the campaign, is it going to be a case of you have to play as certain characters at certain stages?
Well, if it's like Call of Duty, it'll be like that. If it's like COD, it'll definitely be like that.
I'd say because Transformers Wolf Cybertron did this really well in that you could select one of 3 characters per mission. So it could be like that. Much like, what was it? All those events we used to have in Overwatch 1. Was it Jug and Sea's Revenge, where you pick one?
Oh, sure. Or the Archives event, the anniversary.
That's what I think of,
the King's Row thing. Like it could be. I also, but the one major clip they kept showing that of like, it's not finished, but like preview clip of like PvE is like, for example, it seems like it is kind of character specific. It was Torb, right? So it's set in, where are they from? Like Lindholm or something like that in Germany or whatever. And he was setting up huge turrets and like in his workshop. So like you play through something that's kind of his point POV or story. And then maybe there might be other ones that are like, all right, strike team. You get to be Rhine, Lucio, or, you know, Soldier. Like those are our 3 for this one, and you're running through them. Maybe there's a 5 one. Maybe there's a 2-person one. I don't know. We don't know. That's the thing. That's what kind of makes it exciting and interesting. But that would explain also too, there was a lot of, and I was one of them who was like 2-3 weeks out being like, how is there not some huge advertising marketing campaign for October 4th? I should be seeing it. Like, I follow the Overwatch and gaming stuff on Twitter. My feed should be blowing up with promoted tweets.
Yeah, I
But
don't know, man.
no, and maybe there's even more than that. I'm like, oh, but maybe it's because they're saving that push for the big
Yeah.
release next year.
You know, the other thing is like, again, I'll just put my like marketing hat
Yeah,
on.
please.
The joke always is people are like, when marketing, and all I can think is, well, given that there's enough people here creating stuff on their own, that people are lined up to buy it, why do they need marketing at all? What purpose does marketing serve? Marketing is meant to take a message and communicate it in order to create a response. The response they need is people preloading and downloading and installing. I'm pretty sure everybody knew that was happening. I'm pretty sure everybody installed it. I'm pretty sure they played it, or they're waiting in queue. So their job is done.
So I get that. I guess my one question, and a legitimate question for you, is like, in terms of why do you're right, because the existing and even the lapsed fans and player base,
They're there.
they're there. But
Yeah.
especially with the expansion to free to play, widen the audience. Then the goal of marketing would be to get new people who go, what the hell is Overwatch? I want to play.
Maybe
So
they
that's why
targeted
you
them
need
with-
the ad.
I mean, yes
Maybe.
and no. Maybe they'll do it once they know that the game's stable. If you're
Also
getting
fair.
a new audience in, you really, really want to make sure people are there. Plus, think about it. The people who are waiting for marketing are people who are already in the game. If they know
Yeah.
that it's going to be a free-to-play title and they've never heard of Overwatch before, then they're going to like download and install and try it out anyway. Like, the point is, what you're looking at is installs. Okay, so you need new installs. All you need to do is say that it's available, and then at any moment you can bring them in. Do you really want to bring in brand new players right as you're launching a platform for the first time and potentially land them in a less than ideal experience?
Yeah, get the hardcore base in first
Yeah,
and then expand out.
Think about it. Blizzard gets DDoSed. Overwatch gets DDoSed on every release. Why would you invite new players in to not be able to log in? Or why would you do anything
Sure.
when there's a risk of it? Just wait 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Like the launch is gonna. People think marketing has to only be pre-roll, but I'm like, it's gonna be going on for the next year.
That's true. I mean, it's not about day one. It's about year one. It's about all that
Exactly.
stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
I get that.
Right.
I can see that.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
also, a lot of platforms have a dedicated free-to-play game section as well. So let's say you've got a 15-year-old son, for example, and you want them to play something, but you don't want to fork out the money. You say, free-to-play section, go in there. Do. Oh, look, what's this game called Overwatch 2? Boom. You get things like that.
Sure, absolutely. So,
Mhm.
no, that's a totally fair point. That's a very fair point. But yeah, hopefully the server stuff will be worked out. I'm getting timeout stuff now, which is a shame.
Do you have to go on the naughty step?
I get right. You would think, yeah. I'm getting the. I was getting all the server stuff yesterday, but now I'm getting the timeout communicating with BattleNet. So here's hoping that in the next few days this all gets worked out. But
Oh yeah, it'll come.
oh yeah, but as we were talking about before the broadcast as well, this is not the only big announcement that they had in the community. We also saw the introduction of a new Calling All Heroes initiative, which is aimed at trying to be more inclusive for marginalized genders and underrepresented genders in both the player talent aspect as well as on-screen talent, like casters and hosts and stuff like that. So we'll get into more of the nitty-gritty, but the very, very overcast details are there's going to be two things. There's a Challengers Cup, which is, if you want to kind of bookend it, it's kind of reminiscent of the Valorant Challengers thing, where it's aimed at marginalized genders and women teams. So this will run alongside the Contenders stuff. This will be going on starting this month, actually. And then there's also a caster camp, which will, same thing. Applications will come in from women and other marginalized genders to basically go through a kind of a review and kind of coaching sessions with people like Zoe and Mr. X and stuff like that, who will then help you develop a reel for future casting and hosting opportunities, and of course you'll obviously have audiences with people who actually work in the league and Blizzard and all that stuff. So on the surface, cool, really cool stuff. I like that there's some actual like details and plans and things happening as
Oh, yeah.
opposed to window dressing, which we get from a lot of people like, oh, we are here, we just want to announce that we stand up for all peoples and we are inclusive to all. Thanks for coming to our TED Talk. Next tweet. Like, there's so many coming in that I just put out there like, we just want to state that we are inclusive, and I'm like, but I like seeing actual programs in place.
Putting their money where their mouth is, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is, what's really nice is you're dealing with like infrastructure builds. It takes a ton of effort to build these kinds of programs. And, you know, it's funny. There are a lot of challenges, right, that we have in the world. And, you know, you'll see people see a program like this, and all they want to do is poke at it, say, well, why not this and why not that? And I think they're missing the point. It's that you've got to start somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's always going to be some and not others at any given moment, but it's a model, right? Because if you did this for any group, it'll come up, any initiative. And I think what's really wild about it though is that it's just creating avenues, and it's like alternate paths. I remember the Valorant thing was hilarious when, you know, people were like, well, this is supposed to be a meritocracy and you get to where you're going and blah blah blah, and I'm like, because you're so good, and I'm like, you know, some people are just looking for like organized games and a structure. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, you know, League Two football in the UK. You don't compare that to the Premiership.
No.
It's a different world. In fact, some teams will never. They don't have any aspirations to go beyond League Two. That's just what you do. You just don't want to play county level. You know what I mean? But you do it, and it lives in its own world, and that's a good thing. You know, and what I actually, I almost wanted to like, you know, I don't normally comment on this kind of stuff, but I was like, to these folks who are like tearing it apart, I'm like, well, then just don't participate. You wouldn't have gone in those programs anyway. Why do you care? Like, this would be like getting mad at somebody hosting a tournament in general. Why are you only hosting it in Toronto? Why? And it's online. You can do it anywhere. I'm like, well, it's for local Toronto people.
Yeah.
Well, why? I'm like, I don't know. It's like, well, how am I supposed to get there from Sudbury? I'm like, I don't know. It's for Toronto.
Figure it out.
Then,
you know,
or don't do this one, or
or just don't do this one, or you know,
like,
if you have someone locally, throw your own. Like, it's fine. But I think it's actually what I really like though is that it's combining things, right? It's all sorts of different, and it sees it as a larger front for multiple initiatives. It ties into their whole defense matrix program to try to like make the game a little bit more balanced for folks. You know, it's like a little bit more comfortable. I'm like, what difference does it make? You know, I'm like, legitimately, I'm coming out of like a space where I spent like hours playing Gundam, where the censoring is so aggressive. I can't write like basic words like I can't figure out why it's censored. Like hello is censored, and I can't figure out why. You know, and it's fine. You know, but the point is, it's like, I think this is a really, really good thing, and it's not because companies are supposed to be leading our moral initiatives. It's that, why wouldn't we do this to fill out a player base?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, imagine if we're going to do something where you have rec league or youth league, right? Under 13 players, right? Like, think of sports. The rules for leagues for under 13s are different. They're different than you have it for under U16s and U18s and U21s, right? There's different rules on conduct, right? There are leagues for men and women and any other gender identity. They all exist. I don't get mad. You know, would I have ever gotten mad at my old coworkers like gay softball league? No. Like,
Of course not.
Why do I? He's a good softball player. That's just what he does. Why does anybody have a concern about this?
Yeah.
And that's what I thought was funny. I'm like, you already have softball leagues, and you can make a different one. 9-man volleyball. You have to be of Chinese descent to play in the league. And people used to say, well, that's discriminatory. Anyone should be able to play 9-man volleyball. I'm like, the history of the game was that the Chinatowns around North America played it because we weren't allowed to go to your sports club.
So this is my biggest thing, which most people do not understand, and they just this often for sexism, for racism, for a lot of this stuff, a lot of this bigotry, is the idea that, okay, it's 2022. Like, everyone feels like, oh, well, on paper, right? On our laws and stuff like that, we're equal. Scott, what are you talking about? It's like, yeah, okay, people can be racist, everything like that. But again, that meritocracy thing, it should all be gone. Or like like things like affirmative action, or things like these programs to lift up other races or genders. Like, well, if we're all equal now, why do they need a helping hand? Because people don't seem to put it through their skulls that for not years, not decades, fucking millennia,
Yeah.
these other races other than white men, like, literally could not do 90% of the things that we do today. And it's only in the last like century that it even started to happen. And so we need to give those groups a leg up. We need, it takes more than a decade and a couple nice programs to overcome centuries upon centuries of racial, sexual, gender discrimination. So like, yes, these programs help.
In fact, on top of that, Overwatch as a game and its lore, you've got a very diverse cast as well. It's like you've got openly gay characters. I think Tracer is in a same-sex relationship, I believe.
Yes.
There was inklings that Soldier 76 was. I don't know as well.
Sojourn for sure.
And on top of that, you got different backgrounds as well. So to me, this is a good logical step.
Absolutely. And this is one of those cases, like I always joke about, folks. It's like, there's the old saying, like, yeah, someone's always going to have it worse than you in a lot of situations, but those situations vary based off of the nature of the interaction, right? So and the existence of something doesn't mean that it has the ability to affect writ large. Like, this is one of those cases, like, without getting technical, that's what tax laws can be like for some people, because you need an education to understand a tax law. Like, it's really difficult. It's why there's people who get hoodwinked all the time in contract laws all the time, right? And what I love about it is that it's not just about saying we're hosting one tournament once. It has to be a program. So I was lucky enough I knew this program was coming. Eleanor Fortier, who was featured in the video, does quite a lot of work around the supporter club networks. We've gotten to know her over time, and she had pitched this idea early and talked about how she's working on it. And my question to her directly, because she knows my background with 5TV and a lot of the work we've done, is I said, is it an ongoing program versus like a moment in time? And like, it's always my concern around this. Otherwise, it's kind of like a PR stunt at best. It doesn't mean it doesn't have benefit, but it can't grow. It can't have lasting impact. She goes, no, the first thing is that it has to be long-term. I'm like, I'm in. So we talked about it. We've had like secondary talks a lot, because again, it's not to say that the challenges around, underrepresented genders or genders who are at risk are any more or less than other people in different situations, right? I've typically worked with more like people in generalized, like at risk in terms of poverty. Right, that's also barrier to entry. It's one of the things I don't like about the Defense Matrix program, but we'll get to that in a bit. But that doesn't mean it's wrong. It's more that, cool, is there also, and then you ask the question, right? Well, eventually, will this expand and we can talk about other issues, because we've not been able to discuss those in the past? And the answer was yes. And I'm like, yeah, it's what you'd expect any reasonable person doing this type of work to do. It's like, of course, and you have to start somewhere. So no matter, and this is the challenge, and I really feel for the team involved in this. Being the first people to go out and having to choose one group, you're going to get hit. You get it the worst, always. And this always happens. I mean, there's enough historical photography over the last 100 years where we can say the first person who had to break a barrier of some type usually got it pretty bad.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Right? And I think this is one of those cases where, it's actually important for any of us to support this, because if we do have a concern, if someone genuinely has a concern about their ability to be enabled to be their best self and find their true course and remove those barriers, if anybody has that concern, if anything, you should be supporting this if this doesn't affect you, because if you can see that come to play and work and come to life, then we're starting to see the beginnings of a model that can scale laterally.
Yeah.
And that's a very powerful thing for everybody.
And one thing I pick up on with this is, let's say in the long term, it becomes as big as something like Contenders. That's another avenue for players to potentially get into the Overwatch League as well. Because over the course of the league's history, we've only had one openly gay player active in the league, which is Muma. And I believe we had
And
Elk.
one female, right? In Gaguri.
Yes, that was Geggery. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you look at a lot, you got Aspen in the Contender scene who's been grinding away. And to me, she's actually got a lot of talent.
Mm-hmm.
She's actually a very capable player. I mean, I'm not sure because Richard, she was on Revival at one point.
She was. She was awesome on Revival. I have a great Lucio boops.
Yeah, and also, what was it? I think it was like a year ago or 2 years ago. There was a female player in Brazil who won the country's Contenders circuit as well.
Oh yes. Yep.
I can't remember the player's name, but Rich, you might know who I mean.
Yeah, I can't remember the name, but yeah, I was already out of the scene by then. But you're right, and like
it just creates these extra avenues that allow these groups to potentially make the step up. Because teams, let's say, hey, we have Florida Mayhem, just an example here. They go out and say, okay, we need a new tank player. Yeah, okay, we can look at Contenders, but we also have this new area we can look at as well. And given how good their scouting was this year.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. Scouting and intel, these are all good things. And what we have to realize, it's the same thing, right, that everyone faces is that, yeah, you could go through the standard, what exists, the existing systems right now. And the question one has to ask themselves when they're putting their effort in is it worth it? Is it worth just all the BS that you're going to go through? Now, you can make that decision that, yeah, it's worth it. It doesn't mean you're grinding anymore unless it's everything else. It's after a while, you're just like, yeah, you got to work just as hard. You got to play just as much. But then then you have to deal with all this other crap on the side, And that's the whole thing. It's that no one would ever say, and this is why I think it's funny, like, isn't this discrimination? I'm like, well, no. Because it's another event. It'd be a discrimination if they said you can't participate in any events, if you're not a woman. But no one's saying that. Like, you are allowed to have things. You're allowed to have different avenues for different people. It's really funny. I mean, I can imagine that some folks who get really upset about this are probably people who get upset about, like, I don't know, bathrooms, and who's allowed to go into what bathroom, and but now you're arguing different things. It's like you have to have different bathrooms, but you can't have different games. I'm like, it's the same thing,
Yeah.
But and that's the thing, and like what people have to really understand too is you do have to start somewhere. Like, my favorite example of this is when you look at electoral, like suffrage, the rights to vote,
and everyone always talks.
So everyone always talks about, oh yeah, 1918, women's suffrage happened. I'm like, that was awesome. You know what was not as awesome? It's that when you were Inuit in Canada, you lost your ability to vote in 1934. Asians couldn't vote till 48. And what was even crazier is that First Nations only got universal suffrage in Canada in 1960.
Wild, right?
You got to start somewhere. So at least at that moment, that was something that people could understand. And then it took way too long to get it to everybody else. But if we can start to understand and see our challenges in those other groups, and then actually have a means to communicate and educate, and then again, this comes down to management. Can they see the challenges that people who aren't in their specific target face? That's how you actually eventually get to a better place. But the thing is, it's like, yeah, I always laugh. I'm like, the world has never universally done anything ever at once ever. We just don't do that, right?
No.
And you got to start somewhere. And how you manage, how you participate, and how we, honestly, quite frankly, if there will be critiques that will be fair, but making sure they're things that are actually thought through and can make that system better and make it more scalable, it will all happen. It's all going to come up. Yeah. And I think that's why having it as a long-term program that's why I think it's such a good idea. Because if it was a one-off thing, it actually won't go anywhere. It can't go anywhere.
Yep.
Can't even help the group they're talking
about. At the end of the day, hey, isn't everything like that? Yeah, because you think about it, with League of Legends, someone had to turn around and say, we want to make a competitive tournament bracket for these players.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's always going to be someone that will kick down the door first. And with this project, Overwatch is saying, we're going to be that person to kick down the door.
Yeah.
We're going to go for it. So,
And I mean,
absolutely.
Well, I don't know if I'd say they kicked down the door, because this is not something they kind of
weird analogy, but
invented.
you get what I mean.
Right, but because I mean, others have started doing this before them, and that's good. But within this scene, that's the kind of interesting, weird thing about video games is like, and esports is like it's all lumped into one, but each scene is its own like sport. It's like its own baseball, soccer. Valorant is soccer. Overwatch is baseball. League of Legends is basketball. There are different leagues, right? There are different scenes. So they're following in the footsteps of other people like Valorant, like stuff like that. But they're doing their own version of it, and they're putting actionable steps in it. I didn't know, they didn't say it here that it was a long term. I love hearing that it is planning to be whether it be annually or semi-annually or alongside every contenders or what, I don't know. We'll wait for more details, but they actually have some actionable stuff going, and it starts soon. It starts in the next like 3 weeks. First one takes place. Qualifier is October 21st through the 23rd, and the second one is in November, and then the finals of this first one take place in December. And I would imagine they're partnering with Radiant, a production company, so this will be streamed, this will be broadcasted in some capacity. And I think it'll probably cause some issues, I'm sure, just because of traffic, but that's gonna come. But I appreciate that it's an unlimited registration. And which includes, if you check out the more detailed site, includes a free agent system. So if you're like, hey, I want to do this, but I don't have a team, they will get a pool of free agents together and or put you in teams that only have 4 or something like that. So there is a way for both set teams as well as free agent solos to come in and participate.
Yeah. And that tells me that they did think about as many of these options as they could. It's like, what if we have this scenario? Okay, this is what we can put into place.
Yeah.
So it's a very well thought out system. I'll give the team credit on that one.
We'll just have to hopefully
how long term it is.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. I just hope. I think it's like quite frankly, if you're dealing with a competitive game and you are looking to grow a fan base, they kind of have to do this forever, and you would just extend it. Because I actually see this, quite frankly. I know we're talking. It's related to gender in this case. And when I look at the broader mission, when you sort of step back and you think about what this really is, they need this to create the platform to bring in the youngest players that they could possibly get, to onboard them into a space where it actually is a little bit more controlled. Because if you're going to do like an under 15 or under 14 game tournament, it would probably look a little bit like this. And I think this is actually the pathway to create a pipeline for players. So that, I think, is a good thing, right? That's why the Defense Matrix program, they've added we talked a little bit about the transcripts and all that kind of stuff. Although I will say the one thing I do think is weird is that I actually saw this when it first came up, but I was curious if anyone else was going to bring it up, and it finally blew up on Twitter today. You can't use a prepaid phone, right?
Yes.
On the accounts. Now,
I had seen some people talk. Yeah, I had seen some people talking about this too.
Service. There's a lot of people on prepaid. There's a huge class reality. There's an income reality to why prepaid phones exist. Like, newsflash, guys, when I moved back to Canada, I had to go on prepaid because I didn't have a credit rating in Canada anymore because I was in the States.
Right.
So I couldn't play Overwatch. I wouldn't be able to play Overwatch. I changed my plan over only in the last, when I got this connection so I could call you, and I was like, man, I can actually play games again. That would have been the first time I'd been able to play.
Yeah, it's wild, right?
That's messed up.
Just so I understand,
that's really messed up.
What defines prepaid phone numbers? Just so I understand.
So a prepaid phone number. So like allotment phone, when the phone numbers get assigned in batches on the networks, there's entire number sets that are assigned to the handhelds where you just like pay as you go.
Yeah.
So it means that you don't have a credit rating, or you're not doing a postpaid plan, meaning you don't have a monthly plan. Right.
Right.
Fun fact, the cell phone plan that I use is month to month, but I was actually prepaying for monthly access. I was like on the in between, so I kind of got around it. But what it means is like you don't have a ongoing plan where you get a set amount billed each month because maybe some months you can't use as much data, or like there's a lot of people who don't really have smartphones, or they don't have fully functional smartphones because of the way the data is. That's called reality. It is so by eliminating prepaid phones, I can tell you one group you're gonna severely impact console players. Console is a console is much more feasible to get when you're in a lower income community.
Oh yeah.
Than a PC because of the net connection, all that other stuff. Prepaid is also one of the things that you get again for a lot of people who just you have to pick and choose, right? Like that's just reality. Things happen that make these changes. They did it so you couldn't just buy burner phone accounts. Like I made that joke last week about burner phone accounts.
Right.
And I was waiting to see if anyone caught it because I saw that note, but I didn't want to like poo-poo on an idea. But yeah, so. If you have a prepaid number, you can't use the Blizzard SMS Protect thing.
Yeah.
Which is
so
really
and
weird.
like Cricket Wireless here in the US is a huge it is a budget
WWE,
like prepaid
baby.
Dude, yeah, they do a lot of work, but I mean it's a very big network, but they are of that prepaid
T-Mobile
design.
Built the backbone of T-Mobile was prepaid service.
Yep.
A huge amount of people, and this is sort of the irony, right? You know who ultimately over-indexes in prepaid uses? At-risk communities, at-risk genders, people who have had to pick up and run and go, and that is all you get. So what we've actually done is and people will say, well, this makes it harder to smurf. I'm like, the number of people that will buy burner phones to smurf versus the number of people who have to use prepaid phones as reality, they are not comparable.
I was going to say, it's not going to be that.
It's a big mistake.
I can see the VoIPs. Those are like the digital
VoIP,
numbers.
Yeah, VoIP for sure, because there's no barrier to entry, but you're not doing a VoIP if you're lower, like if you're in an at-risk neighborhood. And
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying.
There are people with smartphones that are on prepaid plans.
Yes.
Like I always talk about barriers to entry in esports, and this is the thing that's going to screw it, like that kills the industry. It's that it doesn't want to accept that you need to have disposable income to make it work. Right?
Yep.
And what we're saying is it's like a big middle finger to folks who have less.
Yeah. I agree. I agree with that. I think that is one of those things that they're going to have to.
100 players. If there's 100 players that get impacted, we use fewer numbers than that to make a case about things. 200, but I would say it's going to be a lot bigger.
Oh, thousands, easily thousands, if not tens of. Like I said, I hear everybody. The biggest thing for me is cricket. I saw it mentioned a ton. It is a huge. It is like out of the non like your. I was about to say Sprint, but I think they're dead. Like AT&T, T-Mobile, whatever. Out of the non like big communication, cricket is like the biggest. That is a huge audience, and that is a huge user set. And I think this is one of those things.
When I was in the States,
dude.
When I was in the US, I was on a prepaid account. I wouldn't be in this scene using this policy.
Exactly. There's a lot of people and it's simple situations like that. Like you said, sometimes it's not always a case of that. It's just, I moved to a different country. You don't have credit. You don't have access to getting things like, you don't have a credit card. So you can't put a credit card down for a plan.
It's like an FU to immigrants and poor
a little
people.
bit. Yeah.
And like, that's why I think it's a big issue. I actually really hope they pull it back because it doesn't make any sense.
And you're right. The number of people who are going to go buy a burner freaking phone to create their. Oh my God!
And then there's people. And they'll be like, oh, but there'll be Chinese farms that will do something. Like, they're going to figure out a way anyway. Because quite frankly, if there's money to be made off of selling an account, you're going to do it with a real account anyway, and then you just sell it for more money.
Yeah.
But the whole thing here is, it's like, it also like there's a reality where a lot of folks. It's not unlike not having back in the day. You didn't have the Tiva sandals. You had like another brand. And when you were on a prepaid phone, it's like this thing you don't talk about because you can't afford a monthly plan or you can't get a monthly plan. And now it's like, well, why don't you play Overwatch anymore? Oh, well, I have a prepaid phone. Oh, you have a prepaid? because people judge that stuff
Sure.
all the time.
Unfortunately,
and that's what I honestly, that's why it's like through all the glitz and the color and all this stuff, I'm like, at the core, you're like, well, all it says to me is I don't think people are going out to be prejudicial against those who are in at-risk communities. What I do think it is people who have no fucking exposure to the realities of these people, to these communities and these neighborhoods. They have no concept of it because they live in suburbs or they work remote, and they're like everything was fine and I can do whatever I want, and they have no exposure at all to what it's like to have less. And and that's an issue. But what's the best way to address it? Talk about it. Be like, hey, you should really reconsider this because there's a lot of folks affected. Now, maybe they'll say maybe they ran the numbers, and this would be the worst thing. They might have run the numbers and been like, oh, well, this would only affect X percentage of players. I'm like, holy cow, you turned them into a number and said they didn't matter. But I get how that works from an actuarial perspective. Right, I understand how someone can get there, but it's the absolute calculation done under the wrong absolute wrong directives. And I just hope I really hope they bring this back because it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
and the benefit is not worth the impact.
Yeah, it's negligible.
At the end of the day, it's a sort of damned if you do, damned if you don't situation because they want to protect the players from cheaters. That I think is the root reason why they did this. But how they went about it was always going to be tricky.
Absolutely.
And this is probably the version they thought was going to be the most effective.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. It's like, and the thing is, it happened, and you can always change it. You can always update it, and that's why, like, I'll get spicy over the fact that I think people forget that folks with less are literally their neighbors, and trust me, it's gonna get worse next year, a lot worse next year. But you can correct these things. You don't beat someone, you punch someone in the face just because they said the one wrong thing or they did one thing wrong. You just kind of point out, hey, and then let's talk about it, because here's the thing. They want to prevent cheating and Smurfs. Okay. Do we really think? Here's the thing. If you're really into Smurfing, well, I guess the real question you have to ask is, when you're trying to solve the problem, is why does the problem exist? Why? And I don't know the answer to this. Maybe you guys do. Why do people create Smurfs?
I mean, that's what I know. I'm kind of with you. I never quite understood it. It seemed to me that a lot of people just want to, it's for people for content. They want to try something weird and different and not affect their MMR or whatever on their main account. So I'm a tank player, but man, like, freaking the new support hero looks fun, but I don't want to screw up my MMR by messing around with a bunch of weird strategies and support. So I'm going to make a new account, mess around with support stuff, whether I'm good or bad, I don't care. Or I'm trying to do one of the 8 bajillion unranked to GM content videos, which hopefully maybe we don't need as many anymore because we're getting actual content now. So we don't need to just pull content out of our asses anymore.
That kind of program anyway.
There's been 8
You're like, I'm going to go unranked to GM, but I'm going to do it shirtless while getting massive
right. Yes.
gains.
Yes. All right. New account. Give me a new account.
I'm going to be doing spider curls and gaming at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it.
Matt, you got to do that.
Pad.
Hold on, Matt. Have you thought about that? Like, actually, like, call it like, I don't know, like Power Watch, and like actually be like lifting and playing. Like, do it while you're doing like hamstring curls or like leg presses.
Wait, you think I have leg presses in my house?
I don't know.
Hamstring curl machine?
You're a wrestler. Or
Oh my God, I live in a 2-bedroom condo in Chicago with 5 animals.
Okay, well then do like pull up watch and like just do it like you do like a 1-arm pull ups and like I don't know, like no. But my point is, I just hope I really do hope they walk it back, and if they don't, honestly, in the end, it's a real shame if they don't.
Yes, I agree.
It really would be. I can tell you, I knew a lot of people on prepaid in New York, and it's kind of a,
No, absolutely.
But
I'm with you on that.
Everything else, though, like, I think the idea of the unified account makes a lot of sense. But again, I'm biased there because I've only ever used one account. I've only have that root bearer account. I was like, why?
Yeah.
Why do I care? Because then it's just like, if you want to try something weird, then go to quick play. Okay, well then I want to go in comp. Okay, well then do it. And if you're not good at it, well then your rank should go down because you weren't good enough on that character. That kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree.
Yeah, but again, to each their own. I do think you're right, though. I think it means that you have to have slightly different content, so that's kind of cool. And yeah,
People actually have to make actual content.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
yeah,
Actually,
yeah.
Plex is right. That is the more accurate assessment. You have to make actual stuff. But
Yes.
I think what's going to be great though is with the game out now. I think it's going to make watching the league more enjoyable. Because
Yeah.
now we're in the game, we'll see something, and then
Yes.
we're all gonna
let me
try
go
it
try
out.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
That's what
I
makes
really
it
like
the
that.
viewing experience.
We lost that connection, like the same way that you go watch wrestling and then you would make a really big mistake and then try to do that with your friends.
That's how I got
Like
into
the number
wrestling.
of times, like when I was
Shocking.
like in high school,
I
like
definitely
Luger,
tried it at home.
so Luger was like Lex Luger was like really into, it was like the rack. So like this guy would always go around and like, because we all watched wrestling. So we'd be like, we'd do these challenges where like you do things and he'd be like, he'd rack people. He was a huge dude. Like we'd like get racked in the middle of like the hallway in high school. But I think it's really good, right? Because we need that ability to immerse ourselves and then take that experience and then go out and do it,
Yeah.
in game. Like, let's try this out. And then you realize, oh my gosh, that is really hard to do. And it adds that level. It kind of brings back that like, obviously you can see something that is a spectacle, but to truly understand it as a wonder is that you have to feel and understand the gap between you and that ability to do that.
Yep.
And I'm really looking forward to that. I think it's going to make playoffs really dynamic. It's going to turn grand finals into a great show, although Kiriko's getting released for that, so we'll see what happens there. But
Yep.
she's super hard to use. Like her projectiles
Yes,
go
that's
really
something
slow.
I've noticed.
Yes.
And
So
I gotta reverse the healing and the attack. Like I don't know why she's the only, like, because Moira's like heal is right and attack is left. So I'm like, it's just
Which is what
confusing 'cause
Kiriko
she's
is.
the other way. No, she's the other way around. Her
No,
attack
no.
is the right.
Primary. No. Yes. Which is
Yeah.
what Moira is. Moira is
No,
attack right.
Moira's left is attack.
I was
No.
going to say,
Kiriko's
No.
left is heal.
No. Moira's left is heal. I swear to God, I've never changed the key bindings on Moira. I've never ever touched her bindings.
Oh, maybe
and
I
she's
changed
healed.
the key binding, and that's why I'm confused.
It could,
probably
because
it.
yes.
It
So
might have been
I've
me
got my-
then.
I've got my controller in my hand right now, and I'm trying to think to myself, okay. So
Oh
thinking of
yeah,
Baptiste.
you're right. Yeah. So you know what it is? It's because you know what? I think it's just because she's got like ammo. So I'm thinking it just
Which
weird.
so I thought she the same thing. I thought she would be like Baptiste, where primary
Yes.
fire is her fire, and then you left his heal. I kind of like that it's her primary is heal because it makes for me anyway. It's so stupid. It's literally. I'm gonna visual aid for those watching at home. It's literally a mouse button, right? It's click, click. It's click, 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 mother frickin' click, left or right. But that left mouse button as a right-hander, that primary fire, whatever that one is, I'm instinctually going to do it more often. And so as a healer, as a support, if that primary button is attack,
You're assuming people use her to heal. No, I'm kidding.
No, you're not wrong. But I did find in my games, I'm healing with her more than I do with like a Baptiste because I might instinctually go to my primary fire first on an engagement until my brain kicks in and goes, nope, do the other one.
Which, in a way, is a good thing because obviously Kiriko is a support first.
That's why exactly. That's why I'm
Baptiste
gonna
isn't
keep it
perfect.
that way. That's why I'm gonna keep it that, and I might even switch my Baptiste to. Now that I'm thinking about it, because at least for me, not everybody. Some people are better at balancing it or have the better. But for me, I need whatever my primary goal as that role to be on that primary click.
And I will say this: so last night I actually saw a bit of Applied stream, and he was playing Kiriko, and he admitted that though that kunai is really hard to hit at times. I think it's like he was trying to go for headshots, things like that. It is a tricky thing to land. So it's going to be interesting to see how this forces a play style with Kiriko. Because obviously with Baptiste, you see like Violet, he'll jump up and down while healing and all the rest of it. Whereas someone like let's say Twilight may not jump as much, but he outputs healing in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be interesting to see how players find and adapt a play style for her.
Yes.
I think that's going to make playoffs and grand finals a lot more interesting.
Well, yeah, especially with her ult, like that super rush damage thing. Like
Thing
it's
is
crazy.
insane.
Like
It's insane.
I know. I have a
I
feeling
think
it's gonna get tuned down a little bit.
it's gonna have to, like, because if you have any, like, I was playing quick play with absolute randos, no communication, and like with my half a brain cell support player, I was like, all right, well, we're all grouped up, and the enemy's directly in front of us because they also didn't have much strategy. Let me just throw it down, and we deleted them. I'm like, so if
Yeah.
you have like a modicum of like teamwork and like, hey guys, all right, everybody get like, who's got what? All right, I'm throwing it down, and then you can just barrage the enemy team, and they are
Yeah.
instantly deleted.
Yeah.
So for the
So,
sounds
like-
of it, it's gonna. So for the sounds of it, it's gonna be a lot easier to execute than the Great Bamboozle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. I think it'll be, yeah, I think it'll be tuned.
Nobody
back.
has a surefall waiting in spawn.
Not quite. But I think
Thank you, Richard, for laughing at that one.
I think it'll get a little bit of a tune back. I think it's got to. I think it's got to. But before we go, everybody, I'd be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about league stuff. And the other thing, MVP votes are out.
Oh yeah.
So I thought I'd have just a quick discussion on who we think fits the mold for MVP this year. So we have the options are, again, for those who are listening to audio only, there's Proper, Kevster, Hanbin, Lip, Shu, Prophet, Smurf, Zest, Hottie, and Kai. First off, any notable, do you think, snubs from the illustrious MVP list that stick out to you
Ooh.
immediately?
Well, Reiner's the one for me. I'm surprised Reiner isn't there because he's been having a really good season.
Yeah, Ryan had
But
a
he
great...
could be a rookie of the year. We don't know that yet, do we?
He
Yeah,
for sure will be rookie of the year contender. That's for sure.
Proper is the expected one because think about it. The desk can't go an entire segment without talking about Proper.
Yeah.
So he was basically guaranteed, even before he picked up the keyboard, to be in the conversation.
Plex has such a bias against Proper. It's so funny.
It's not a bias. It's a case of...
They talk about him because it's true. They're not making it up.
Then
They're
why did they
not
talk about another player on the
lying.
team then?
Because the other players aren't as impressive.
Because they're support players. Because they're tag
No,
players.
because they're not doing as much work. Like this. I'm sorry. This is one of my biggest pet peeves with Plex. They're not pulling this stuff out of thin air. He's getting team wipes on his own. He's really good. He is the standout player of the team. This is not like undue. And yet what?
He couldn't defeat Dallas Fuel all by himself.
Okay, one game. One game out of freaking 27 freaking
3 games. Thank you very much.
Oh my
I'm
God.
sitting this one out.
By all means.
No, I
I
think the list overall generally makes sense. Like I think
sure.
Yeah, there's some folks that I thought you could make arguments like think like MVP meaning has the most impact on their team. Right? Now, of course, I think they want to assume that these players the teams themselves have to also be doing well. Like a good example, if you only looked at someone's individual impact on the outcome of their team's play, Aspire definitionally is the MVP of the league.
Right. No, it's a fair.
Yeah, like without him, that team is the worst team in the league. Like he is the most valuable player.
Right.
Like for any team, all said. But that's like, and it's not that it's because he's like everyone else is terrible, but he impacts on the win. His wins above replacement in terms of like the one time they were winning, that's him. You do not win without him. But I think generally like it makes sense because it's like your team. Yeah, if the team has to be generally doing well, yeah. I totally forgot Prophet was still playing. Not kidding. But in fact, I think he's like the only season 1 guy here, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, on this list. Yeah.
Yeah, Hanbin came in with the Paris Eternal.
Yeah, Reiner is one where I could have imagined him being here just because it's like it's been crazy to see his play. But yeah, like I said, I think it makes sense, right? This isn't like all-star team where it's like you got to have a player from every team. It's not like that.
Sure.
I think it makes sense. Like Hottie on Spitfire, yeah, I think it's hard to make an argument against that.
Right.
And then we are accounting for like overall team performance as well too. right?
Yeah.
So that's why I thought it was interesting to see both Shu and Kevster on. Like, yeah, but they
Yeah.
are obviously like you could make an argument about their individual impact on that team's performance. It's true. It's absolutely true, right? So knowing that overall performance is there, it's like the only team where it's like your team is kind of up and down would be like Kai on Rain, but Kai's awesome. Like I
Sure.
can see that as well too, right? So
Yeah.
I think overall it makes sense. I personally I'm like, if I had to vote, I'd probably say like Hanbin's impact on Dallas. Like
It's
for
been
Dallas
pretty.
to hold, like
Yeah.
when they to get them the win, they need him. Like without him, they're not the team that they are right now.
So,
They again,
I'm gonna
you sort of remove them from the lineup, put in a substitute. Can they be the same team? Knowing that we've already just
Yeah.
controlled for overall
Which is-
performance.
been my argument about Dante in the tank position for Houston Outlaws. Can they operate as well without him?
I mean, yeah, you want to talk about like again, they're not like a number 1-2 team, but like they've stayed in the top 4 pretty consistently all season. And
they have.
I agree with that. Like when Dante's not in, they suffer markedly. The game, like it is a noticeable gap. Like when they've tried to bring in when they tried Piggy early on, and when they've tried Doge in the later half, it is a market gap in performance. So I would argue, but he could be like an MVP.
I'm going to ask you, gents, this question. So, who do you think is going to win versus who do you want to win?
Well, before that, that's actually a great question. But before we get to that, I want to get your guys' thoughts on. I know Overwatch 2 is a more like damagey favored like meta, but there's only one support player out of all of these. You think that's a little bit of a miss, perhaps missing out on some of the great support players,
or is there? Yeah.
Is there any supports we think? Oh shoot, they've had a really big impact that we're not thinking of.
I was thinking of names. Kira, I think it's Kirio.
Yeah.
That's how you pronounce it on Dallas Fuel. He's been playing really well. Obviously, Lee J. Gong, the meme himself.
Sure. Yeah. Right. Lee J. Gong
one.
would be. I mean,
I was trying to think of other names at the top of my head. Lastro. You can make an argument for Lastro as well.
yeah,
So he's
I
been
think so.
flexing over to main support,
Yep.
and actually doesn't look like he skipped a beat.
The thing is, I don't think any of the supports are defining the wins.
Yeah, which is
That's kind of what I'm thinking of. That's kind of what I'm thinking
really
of.
good work. Really, really good work. But by virtue of how the game's played now, it's like you're not getting like continuous point saving on a sleep nade combos. Like you're not getting that's just not how the game works. In fact, the entire last stage we just saw like had debuffs to all hell where you couldn't even heal people, so it really didn't even make a difference anymore.
Oh, sorry, I forgot. There are 2 support players on here. Profits there, I forgot.
Oh yeah, Prophet. Yeah.
Went to Ringtail for a bit.
Yeah, but it's hard though. It's tricky though. Like
Sure.
it's tough, right? It just by virtue of the way the game works, and it's like and if you take Prophet out of that lineup, they are also not the same team. Like not at all, So we'll see though. I don't know, man. Like it'll be interesting. I really wish there was some, Toronto on there, but I don't. I actually think they're a very balanced team. That's one thing.
Sure.
Yeah, they spread the workload really well.
Yeah,
so to speak.
and that
One player very well, the others will step up. I mean, Mayhem, you could say a similar thing about them.
Yeah,
it's a very team-oriented style rather than relying on one player to do all the legwork. So going back to my original question, so I'm going to ask Matt first. Of this list, who do you think will win versus who do you want to win?
Yeah, so I think Proper's made a lot of headlines this year, so I feel like that it could be one of those years. People love headlines. So first ever Rookie of the Year and MVP. It's a hell of a headline for a newcomer to the game. Exciting to hear. This could be a fun headline for the league. I feel like they might go for that this year. If not him, I think Hanbin has gotten a lot of attention too. My vote, so I think it's going to be Proper, maybe Hanbin, but who I want it to be would be Prophet, because I think between I think he's just had the most impact on his team overall, because especially with the switching over to Brig and everything and doing a really good job with that. I think he has had the most value, and like he's one of those. For a team that's done pretty well this season, you take him away, and I think it takes a lot of that success away too.
Yep.
So
I agree with you.
Okay.
Damn
So
it.
Richard, over to you on this one.
Okay. So it's actually pretty similar. So my I actually want Hunbin to win. I think he has had the most impact on his team. Like he's become the dominating tank force. It's just like it's
Yep.
awesome to watch him. I have in terms of who I think is gonna win. Honestly, I'm actually not sure. I think Hanbin has enough popularity because it's a popular. It's just a straight vote, right?
sure.
Like there's
Yes.
no
Yes. Yes.
league, so 25%, and then the media. So that's the split, right? I think he's got the fan service support, so he could win that. And I think we'd be hard pressed to see Overwatch like teams and talent say it's not him. So I have a feeling he should win, and I want him to win, and I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do think though that there is a good argument for Profit, right? But the tricky thing is, I don't know if Profit has the fan service vote as much as he used to, because it's like,
Sure.
is he as cool with the youth? And
Yeah.
he's also coming from a different market.
He's the old guy
He's-
now, right? Yeah.
he's
yeah,
the
yeah.
old guy, even though he looks like a child, like, but he's like the old guy.
Not as old
Right?
as Carplay though.
Yeah, right. But yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I could see that happening. Whereas, because I always joke, it's like Prophet's like the old guy, and someone like, I don't know, I would joke like Shu was kind of, or was like, or Proper is like, that's like the newer school. You know what I mean? There's like these funny generational gaps, like Kevster versus Prophet. Like if you like compare them, like who supports which player. Like I joke, it's like going from season 1 to now. Like you'll be like, who are all these strangers? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I think there's an argument to be made for Prophet. I could see him doing it because I do not see Dynasty doing what they do without him. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Smurf, I like him, but but the thing is, like, that was the other case. I looked at that because I was like looking at considering the Soul reality that they're such a dominant team. But I was like, Soul without Smurf versus Soul without Prophet. I'm like, Smurf is pretty damn good.
That's fair.
Mm-hmm.
He's pretty darn good, right? There's an APAC requirement here. I could see more support coming in from the talent on that. But Hunbin on Dallas faces more teams with arguably more balanced talent. So that's
Yeah.
why I'm like, with Prophet, I kind of put it back. And like, again, isn't Prophet playing like DPS now or something? Or
He's
there's
back on
something weird.
DPS, yeah.
He is back on Deeps now, right? Yeah, I'm so confused. I
Yeah, he's
get
been
confused
playing a
all
lot
the
of
time with
Tracer
this.
and Genji, I believe.
Yeah. So it's like, but yeah. So like I said, so to wrap it up, I think I think Hunbin deserves it, and I think he's going to win. And then probably be Prophet as a secondary, just
Yeah.
because the
So-
team, like Soul is so good, but yeah, when you do the deletion of the player, they would not be there without him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the award is pretty much going to be proper or bust, based on all the information that's out there. But I've always said that I really like the players that are enablers, so to speak. It's like you can't have proper popping off, for example, without Violet and his Finn in the back line,
Mhm.
which is why I feel that Hunbin is the one that I agree with Richard's points, but Hunbin is a facilitator player. It's like we saw with the false 9 meta at the beginning of the year with the Reaper Zarya. He was making sure that Edison was protected and things like that. Those kinds of players, I think, are much more deserving. So I like Hunbin to win. Also Shu as well, from the same argument, because obviously without him, Kevster, Patapan, Arns, Happy now. None of them could have done their job. So for
Mhm.
me, it's going to be proper to win it, but I want Hunbin and Shu to be one of the others as well, because of that enabler playstyle. But that's just me, and obviously I take a very different approach and look to this kind of thing.
No,
The
that's a
enablers just
pretty.
don't get
No,
credit-
that's a pretty.
credit they
Yeah, that's a
deserve.
pretty.
I think
That's
that's
pretty fair
fair.
thing. Yeah, I think that's a pretty standard look at things. So you know what? Am I logged in here? No, I'm not.
You're not going
I'm
to do it,
like-
are you?
We're gonna vote right now.
Okay. So I think
This is
consensus
a
on-
show vote on Hanbin.
okay. So yeah, I'd say Hunbin.
Okay. I'm locking this in. Is that your final answer?
Richard,
Yes.
do you want to go 50-50?
Oh,
You wanna
it's like
ask the
it's like
audience?
voting. It's like voting. Like, are you sure this is the contestant you want to vote for? Yes.
What was this? X Factor? Strictly Come Dancing?
I already did log in. Here. I don't want
Shout out to the British audience who know what I'm on about.
You're damn right.
For in America, it's called Dancing with the Stars.
Yeah, Dancing with the Stars. Vote confirmed. We have officially voted for Hanbin. If he loses, it's all our fault. We didn't vote enough. But, yeah. And then we'll do a quick, we've already been talking for quite a while here, so we'll do a quick little rundown of the week that was. I know we were all kind of running all over the place. So, I mean, some of the big things that stood out, though, was that, Shanghai got 3-1 by Philly. San Francisco kind of medium righted the ship. Toronto took them down, but then they were able to pull back against Atlanta, who's actually Atlanta's
reverse
been
sweep,
doing,
by the way.
Yep.
and Atlanta's been doing pretty good. They've kind of come back to form in this meta. Meanwhile, the frickin' Richard tried to pay me off before the broadcast started to not mention it, but the Vancouver Titans beat the Toronto Defiant 3-1 in the final match of the week this week. Richard, are you okay? Like,
I mean,
At least it didn't go down the Midtown alleyway.
Yeah.
oh, that was a hell of a result.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay, I'll give
Vancouver
Richard a
something.
break to collect his thoughts.
We have to
because-
give Vancouver something every now and then because
Throw
it is
him a
an awful
bone.
City. You got to throw them a bone. I mean, like, you just don't want to. I mean, you gotta allow your losers to be lovable, right? And I figure this is like charity work. It's sort of like they're doing it so they can feel good about themselves because they have no hope in hell. They're not making the postseason, so give them something that they can feel good about.
So you can,
Because
in
they're not even going to be
wrestling-
around to have feelings in about like 2 weeks, so it doesn't matter. Vancouver is irrelevant.
In wrestling,
No,
we
but,
do
yeah.
enhancement matches, like
Yeah,
squash
exactly.
matches.
Every now and then you
Something
got to do
you
the
could
job.
add.
You
gotta
gotta
do the job.
you gotta give the age old thing is, especially if you're like, we're trying desperately to not make it look like a squash match, but we all know what it is. It's all a squash match. It's all about so and so beating this local. But every so often, the producer or somebody putting it together will be like, well, give him a little something, right? Give the
Yeah,
guy a little
like Barry-
spot at the beginning.
Yeah, this is like
He
we
hits
you know
him,
what?
hits his drop kick. Cool, and now we shut him down and kill him.
Yeah, look, this is like when like Barry Horowitz had that little run.
Yeah.
Like, you got to give Barry Horowitz a win. You know, it's okay. Because like I said, Vancouver ain't making the postseason anyway. So like, what do we
Yeah.
care about Vancouver?
Yeah,
and
This
just
is
real
like
quick,
war, yeah.
the
No,
result
but
that's-
I was actually surprised though. Like, all jokes aside, like I said, this meta is harder for Toronto. It's definitely harder. Right?
Yeah.
This is
you have
not
to be
as-
very versatile.
we were really, really good. Like the Junker Queen one was it was a good one for the team. This is tricky. There's a lot of Orissas too. A lot
Yeah.
of Orissas everywhere.
Yay.
there's
Not
some
allowed to
mercy
play.
play out there. Yeah,
But no, I mean, one result that stands out to me, and I watched this match, is Philadelphia Fusion versus Guangzhou Charge.
that's right.
And-
Guangzhou got the win there after Philly had beaten Shanghai earlier the weekend.
So the reason why it stands out to me was, as I was watching that match, a lot of Philly's decision making was really bizarre. It's like the second match was Eichenwald, and
Mhm.
throughout their attack on point A, or point B, I should say. So Fusion were attacking first. And on point B, they became obsessed with taking that castle on point B, to the point where they literally ran the clock down. They had a really good time bank, only for the things like a minute and a half for them to complete from the halfway mark.
Mhm.
And keep in mind that the carts had been rolling back, so they managed to get around the first corner, and then they became obsessed with the castle, to the point where they literally completed point B in OT because nobody was pushing. I thought to myself, why? Combine that with the fact that Piggy is clearly a more aggressive tank than Frog.
Oh
was.
yeah, Piggy's been a big boon for that team.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, there's a lot of decision making from Philadelphia Fusion, which just didn't make sense. But the Eichenwald point B attack emphasized that for me. But credit to Guangzhou, they put in a shift, they got the wins. But Fusion clean up their decisions a little bit.
Yeah, there's a lot of like kind of. I'm not calling it coin flip, but there's a lot of ping pongy results this week. I mean, Toronto beat Shock, but then lost to Vancouver.
Yeah.
Guangzhou
Yeah.
beat Philly, but then earlier they got whooped up on by Seoul. Like Valiant beat Chengdu and
Yeah.
Hangzhou. So Valiant has this weird like hey, we're not the worst for like a weekend.
I think realistically, what we're seeing, and this is something that I've observed over like multiple seasons, is you can tell at this point the teams who have got something to play for. I mean, you see it with the Premier League every once in a while, where you see a team that's battling relegation. They know they need the win. Will fight harder against a team that is guaranteed to be safe. And we're seeing that with teams like Vancouver last week going into it, were on the bubble. They needed the results to go their way, but obviously they had something to fight for. Whereas you look at a team like San Francisco Shock or LA Gladiators, they don't have as much pressure on them because they've got their spot.
Which brings up the old, like we heard this last year in the between Shanghai and Dallas last year, heading into like the Countdown Cup, the last stage. Their coaches had actually come out and been like, we're taking it easy in scrims, and we're having less practice days because it was like we're already locked in for playoffs. So like I don't know if that nobody's come out and said that this year about what they're doing. Any of the top teams, your Fuels, your Shocks, your Glads, nobody's come out and said that. But I do wonder if something like that could be potentially happening. Is the idea like
it could be like mentally the players are like, okay, we can tell our foot the gas a little bit.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
we've got this spot. So it could be a mentality thing that the coach needs to address, but obviously we don't know.
Right. Because they do. And a couple other people clinched their spots. I know Outlaws clinched their spot in playoffs. Let's go. In fact, we can go to the standings.
Yeah, because I believe Chengdu have also clinched play-ins as well. What Avril was saying.
But Chengdu looks like they look like they're pretty locked.
Yep.
Guangzhou is right there.
Because I was trying to figure this out. So assuming that they've got 4 games to play, is there a scenario where they could drop out of the play-ins?
I don't think so. So out of the play-ins,
I think
there's only how many games?
This is
are
where
left?
I'm at. I think that Vancouver got 4 games in hand. I think. I'm not entirely sure, but they need to get those results and hope Boston don't win again. Is the current scenario. That's my understanding of it.
Yeah, so hold on. Go back to the play-ins. Go back. Yeah, I don't think Florida can miss the play-ins because of the map diff. That's the big thing, because it's like the best thing Vancouver can do is tie them. So go back to the previous.
It's like
the full season.
This is your
So the play-ins. Yeah. So
area
look.
of
So
expertise here,
look.
Richard. I'm
So
relying
we've
on
got.
you here.
So we've got. So let me just full screen this. So we've got. So Vancouver's got 22 games, right? And how many games are there in the season?
There's 24.
20. So there's 2 games left. So even if they won two games, right? And let's see, and you're at 20. Oh, wait, hold on. Vancouver, Florida's only played 20 games.
Yeah, they got 2 games in hand on the others.
Oh my God.
2 last week. They got to buy.
Vancouver can't make this at all. Like there's basically no way, because look, if they win 2 more games, right? This is what's so weird. So and Boston only has 20 games. Oh my God. It's really hard. Boston would have to look at minimum, like if you're looking at points, like think about it. You need to go from Vancouver would have to go from 4 to 8, right? That means they have to win 4 games. There's not even 4 games left.
Right, I'm with you.
Like, yeah, they can't. They actually can't. But the positioning of Florida and Boston, that's technically all up in the air, because that's like a game split. That's going to be really cool. That I think will be really. I think honestly, with 2 games left, Washington all the way. So yeah, like basically Toronto down to Florida, Washington down to Boston. That's all. The ordering is all over the place.
Yeah, right.
It could be anywhere, but no, like Vancouver, like no. With only 2 games left, the best they can end up at is 6-18.
Yeah,
that's the best they can. So they definitionally can't make it. And then like look at that map diff.
Yeah, the map diff is rough.
And also on top of that, Mayhem have the bonus points as well for the tournament.
Oh yeah. No, Mayhem will be fine. I'm really looking forward to it in playoffs. Right, like it'll be cool.
Yeah, I just wanted to double check the mathematics. That I got it right. That's all.
Good old stats. Never was my subject in school either.
Yeah, trust me, I'm terrible at maths. I actually had to resit my maths exam just to pass.
Oh God.
Oh, I've done that. I've done that too.
I'll never
We've
touch
all-
math
we've
again.
all been
I'll
there.
never touch math again. But as we look ahead to the weeks ahead, you talked about Florida. Florida plays Vancouver and Atlanta this weekend. So hopefully an easy clap, I would think, in that first one, and then a bit of a challenge in the
Vancouver's
second.
form, that was up in the air. Atlanta, I could see it being close, but Vancouver game will be the interesting one for me.
It will be, yeah, because I mean, if they show up like they did against the Toronto, it could be a good one. It'll be
Yeah,
very,
and
very
I
interesting.
will say this. So McGravy said this in Mayhem called recently, how this isn't quite the right meta for them because it's relying on the off tanks.
Yep.
Tanks like your
Yeah.
Zaryas, your Sigmas, which someone can pick up, but at the same time, he's not the greatest. So put him against like a Punk or I'm trying to think of other off tanks. You've got Punk Hunbin, for example.
Mhm.
He will struggle. So I think
Sure.
it's going to be a case of will he be able to play what he's comfortable on rather than be forced into these mirror matches. So
Very
we'll see
true.
on that one.
Very, very true. Well, we will, of course, let you all know about that. The crazy weekends, it's slowing down, or it's, should I say, speeding up, but it's closing down. It's ramping down. We're getting closer to the end of the season, and we are getting closer and closer to play-ins. Who's going to start making these cutoffs and not making these cutoffs officially? Well, with whatever happens, we will let you know. Do us a favor, like, subscribe, leave comments down below. Who do you think is going to go all the way this season? Leave a comment down below wherever you are listening and or watching this, and let us know what you think. We appreciate you, and until the next time, for the Great Root Bear, for Plexomatic across the pond, I am the Drama King. We will see you next week on Overwatch.
Bye.
Bye.